AIS. Firstly, I would like to thank each one of you for joining this webinar on Industry Connect, which we have started to connect with the eminent personality from the industry to share knowledge and experience amongst us. We all know that the world is facing a difficult situation today due to COVID-19, and all businesses have been affected. AIS has also taken several precautionary measures as prescribed by the government for the past few weeks to ensure safety in health of our employees, customers, as well as partners. We are taking all steps to minimize the disruption to business and to ensure a smooth restart as and when the environment will return to normalcy. Let us try to utilize the time and resource that we have at hand and make the most of it. We also hope that each one of you and your family are safe and healthy. Today we have architect Rahul Mehta with us today. It is my pleasure to introduce him. Uh, Architect Rahul Mehta is a senior associate working with PG Patki Architect. PG Patki Architect is amongst the leading architectural firm in India with a portfolio that ranges from luxury hotels, multi-speciality hospitals, corporate and IT offices, retail and entertainment centers, and residential township. The firm has consistently built landmark projects with a reputation of excellence over the last 40 to 45 years, with legacy of distinction, which is carried forward by architect S.P. Patki. To talk about few words for architect Rahul Mehta, he completed his education from K. Raheja Vidyanidhi Institute of Architecture and Environmental Studies, Juhu. With a total experience of 15 years, architect Mehta has worked on projects from varied background like commercials, residentials, IT park, as well as to talk. He has also worked with some prestigious client in the industry like Runwal, Sapurji Palamji, Lunker Reality, Brookfield, Ananta Landwise, and K. Raheja Corp. Architect Rahul Mehta today will be speaking on focal point on design revisited, necessitated by the pandemic. Uh, I welcome architect Rahul Mehta on behalf of all of us present here today for this webinar on AIS Masterclass platform. I hope everyone present here may find your insight on this topic. I'm sure people attending the session may have interesting questions for you, Mr. Mehta. I would request them, all of them, to share their question in the chat, which I'll be collating, and we'll take up all the questions towards the end of the session. So let's begin here. So over to you, Mr. Architect Mehta.
For that nice introduction. Hi, everybody. It's good to be here on the platform, and I thank AIS to allow me to present my views and the thoughts. I would like to take this opportunity to thank PGP for allowing me to learn so much with them, and it's been a great experience. So we're all in this lockdown situation today, and we are all gathered here on a webinar to probably understand better what's going on. Before this pandemic hit us, we were on with our regular lives. We were going to our offices, we were doing our conferences, we were doing our meetings. We were going, and all the places all around were buzzing, all public areas were buzzing. And suddenly we were hit by something that a lot of us have not experienced in this lifetime, and that is an absolute lockdown and an enforced staying indoors situation, and a situation we probably did not envision at all. Today, what we gather and what we see is a very different city. Something that we are not used to. Our roads are empty. Our landmarks are empty. The places we used to socialize are empty. And all of this has slowly moved on to a virtual platform, and we are slowly getting accustomed to it. Just like you can see that picture with me and our team interacting internally and talking about ideas and our work. Uh, that's really what's happening, and all of these discussions have started moving indoors. And this is the shift that we are all trying to grapple with. So, what were we exactly focusing on as architects or people from the construction industry? How were we looking at our designs? What were our focal points before this pandemic hit us? Before we were locked in? If we specifically look at residential properties, our focus was, to help our clients, help our end users. Uh, Everybody start looking at maximum consumption, great experiences, creating gated communities, created creating ample amenities within all these neighborhoods and parks that we make. And we were very keen to start bringing a lot of green, a lot of landscape, a lot of new experiences into our designs. And everything that we as architects and designers were looking to do was to kind of bridge those gaps and elevate our sense. And while we talk about elevating our senses, we were looking at arrival experiences. We were looking at interior finishes and designs which would appeal to us. We were very keen on seeing to it that the entire experience, be it as I enter the property, as I do my drop off, as I move up to my home, uh, everything is well embellished. Everything is well celebrated, uh, and within all the norms, within all the restrictions, and within all the dynamics and efficiencies that we were to address, we were trying to work on all these experiences. When we look at our homes over the last 4 or 5 years, I think everybody would agree that a lot of focus has been on on the mid-segment housing, on housing which is a little more dense, on looking at spaces where we even in the luxury segment we're trying to make the best of the square footage that we have. So we've been looking at compact sizes, flexibility. We've been looking at floor plans which are much more open, so that the restricted square footage is still give us a large expanse. And we want to embellish all of these apartments and all of our homes with a number of modern fittings and the best in technology that's available to us. And this is really what we're looking at in terms of homes. In terms of our workspaces, what have we been looking at in terms of our workspaces? Um, it's it's interesting that we're constantly looking at a good density, a good efficiency, because of which we're looking at an open workspace. Uh, we're looking at more amenities within our office complexes. We're looking at more recreation happening, more F&B happening, and we're practically expecting our office life to slowly flow and extend itself into a social life. Um, and then that really enriches us, pushes us to work better, and that's really been something that we've been focusing on. As we move from the post-work scenario and all the entertainment, we go through the grueling traffic. And I'm sure everybody here is used to the traffic in the city. They've been to Pune, they've been to Bangalore, they've been to Delhi, Mumbai. We're all the same. We're all grappling with traffic snarls and taking our time and taking various methods of commute back to our homes. And going back to our homes uh, is an experience by itself, and we go through a lot of chaos. Then when we eventually reach home, home is uh, home is where we get our souls. Home is where we get our warmth. Uh, Home is where we cut off from all these things, and we focus on our family. Uh, and that's really the rule of what we're undergoing today on a day-to-day basis, and that's become more or less our routine, uh, so as to speak. Now, suddenly we've been hit by this pandemic, and we've learned a few things. And and as we've learned a few things, we've realized that the way we've been living before will probably need to change slightly. Maybe our habits have to evolve a little bit. Maybe our workspaces, maybe our homes, maybe the transport interchanges we visit, maybe the public spaces we visit. All of these might need to behave slightly differently. Uh, and how do we look at it as people who've been designing, as people who've been in a part of this real estate and construction field? And that is really what we are here to discuss today. So, what have we learned from this pandemic so far in trying to stay safe and moving along? We've learned that staying home is important, or staying indoors is important. Uh, we've suddenly learned a new word, or at least it's a new word for me, is social distancing. We've learned a new word called social distancing. But my sense is that that's going to be an important word moving forward. We've always known about sanitization and disinfection, but we've not seen sanitization, disinfection the way we are seeing it today. And we've probably understood that it's much more important in terms of self hygiene. Yes, we're all aware of self hygiene. Yes, we've all focused on self hygiene, but self hygiene, fitness, our health, and all of these things have been important. They've been addressed over the last decade with gyms moving in, with a lot of places becoming very important uh, part of our lives, indoor games becoming part of our lives, the marathons that some of us take up, the cycling races that some of us take up. Um, but I think that will need to get reinforced. We will need to look at it with more rigor. Uh, Security checks are something that became a norm and commonplace after a few events unfolded some time back, and they've now become common space in most of our hospitality segments. They've become a common space in large commercial spaces. They've become common space in most of our healthcare uh, and our transport. But security checks will again probably become more treated differently, uh, become very important from a residential standpoint as well. Reducing dependency on common services, valuing our resources. These are some things which are going to become important, and something that I think all of us are learning. It's very important that we know what resources we have, and how do we use it, and how do we do it in the right way. What should our dependencies be on goods which are coming from various places which we took for granted for a long time. A balanced storage of essentials within our home and offices is also something uh, which is something we start valuing now. Uh, a little before we'd started moving to home deliveries, online ordering, and not storing so much within our apartments and homes and offices. I think storage is going to become another important element, and I'm sure at least I am learning that storage is very important when I'm buying groceries every 4 days or 5 days, and trying to see to it that we thought of all of these things right. And which we receive our goods, or the way in which we dispose of our goods or our garbage is also something which is going to be extremely important. We're used to online ordering, we're used to getting our food from outside, we're used to getting a lot of stuff coming to our communes. Um, and equally important is how do we get rid of our garbage? How do we get rid of stuff which we don't want? Because from a sanitization standpoint, from a hygiene standpoint, this becomes something important in today's day. Connectivity and automation were always gaining importance. We wouldn't be having this conversation if we wouldn't have web connectivity, and we wouldn't be able to do our work from home without it either. And automation already has become a large part of our lives. But in a situation like this, when we are locked in, uh, this is the key, uh, and this is common sense. That I mean, as we move forward with this conversation, a lot of these points are just common sense and generic. They're very simple, and most of these they've been there. They've been around, and we've been addressing them differently over the years and even traditionally. But all of these will need to get looked at a little more differently, and maybe we just need to refocus a little bit on these points which we've taking for granted over a period of time. So if we were to do a layered approach, and we would take our first checkpoint if we were to move into our gated community, be it a residential or be it a commercial space. The most important thing as we start, and we're all used to seeing a big gateway portal today and a celebrated entry with a couple of security staff helping us in. I think this space will become a bit more functional in terms of just the regular scrutiny that we have going. It could probably be our first sanitization checkpoint. Um, we probably want least number of people entering and coming in confused. And if we've got something suspect, we definitely want to see to it that there is a waiting bay for these vehicles to get sanitized or checked. And this first security check post is probably going to get reinforced. Similarly, your service end, what we talked about in terms of receiving, getting your staff in, your garbage, all of these things are common knowledge and a regular in terms of our circulation and designs and space planning when we talk about hospitality, when we talk about healthcare, when we talk about retail, and say most of our commercial projects. Um, but in terms of residential projects and now all commercial projects, I think if we can afford this space at a neighborhood level or within our communes, it would be very important as a check. Uh, the same courtesy of hygiene and sanitization needs to be lent to all the stuff coming in, all the stuff going out, and all the people coming in and coming out. And this is a good checkpoint, the second checkpoint for our service staff, which will be helping us operate and our operational staff. And as we talk about our operational staff, our security staff, um, we need to make space for them. We need to make enough space to give them not only a washroom or a lounge, we need to give them a locker room, we need to give them a place to change, we need to give them uh, that particular space where they sanitize themselves, get ready, and then move into the community. That space is very critical. Regular inspections for them, uh, verification, uh, checks, all of these are extremely critical as we move forward, and all of these will ask for space. And as we create those spaces, we need to be very sure that we can keep those spaces sanitized. Moving slightly forward and to the first and the last barrier as we enter into our spaces themselves uh, is the cutoff lobby. The cutoff lobbies have become common space as we've started air conditioning most of our space. In hospitality, healthcare, retail, all of these are absolutely common space. And it's regular to have a metal detector over there. You'll see it at all transport interchanges. But what will also probably become important is that we start looking at using this as the first barrier as we enter into our common areas. We probably treat this as that sanitization checkpoint. All our engineering help, all our innovators out there will probably help us find some way in which we can do some form of, say, UV disinfection, or just the regular hand sanitizer, or some form of check at this point. And therefore, looking at cutoff lobbies is going to become something which is equally important. As we move to the next layer, moving towards a home or office, is common areas. Common areas are something we experience every day, and I probably feel that we take most of them for granted. The first change, I believe, and probably logically, and I'm sure everybody will agree, is a sense of new ergonomics. What we've learned with social distancing will probably change and create a new normal in terms of the way we compute the areas that we require for our common areas, especially our elevator lobbies. That will be a big driving factor in the way we approach them, in the way we size them. And as we talk about elevator lobbies, we need to talk about the elevators themselves. So I'm sure all of us are aware of how we compute the number of packs in an elevator, and we're all aware that at peak hours, if we are going to our offices or visiting someone else's office, we're packed into each elevator like a pack of sardines, and the way in which the number of people are computed is exactly like that. And then that's something that's probably going to need to be evaluated again. We just need to probably now know that the one elevator which I felt previously was 20 packs is now probably 13 packs or lesser. And that's something which is going to change the way in which we design in the future, or the way in which we use the existing elevators in our buildings. It reminds us and reinforces to us that the stretcher elevator, which is something that was first in healthcare and then has slowly made its way into all verticals of design, needs to be there. Be it part as one of the elevators in our guest bank or in our service bank. It's very important from a medical emergency standpoint now that we have a stretcher elevator, and we definitely have a separate service lobby and service elevator set, just from the sense of hygiene and maintenance. And as we talk about hygiene and maintenance, how do we treat these common areas? How do we look at finishing these common areas? How do we look at embellishing these common areas? Is going to become even more important now. Probably minimalistic designs would be easier to maintain, and the lesser number of horizontal surfaces we have will mean that we are providing a lesser opportunity for bacteria and fungal infections to gather and blossom on, and making it easier for our operational staff. Same goes for our materials, because something in terms of materials will also need to evolve, and the typology of materials that we choose will also need to evolve. And the way we probably use rugs will also change in common areas. If we look at the most logical things as we move towards our homes or our offices is the corridors and the way we ventilate our corridors. Not all corridors have the luxury of having the natural light that the slide shows, or the natural ventilation. In a lot of cases, we've now got either a corridor which is deriving both of these elements from an inner courtyard, which is already ventilating kitchens or washrooms for service elements, or we've got a completely enclosed corridor which needs to be ventilated mechanically. We might irrespectively now want to see and understand with our friends from the MEP faculty and see how we can address the air changes correctly, see to it that maybe we want more mechanical ventilation and see to it that the number of air changes, the way in which the cleaning happens, the pressure that's maintained, the temperature that's maintained, uh, all is in check. And these basic elements that we always talk about at the start become that much more critical, especially since they are the last layer before we actually uh, start reaching our homes. And as we reaching our homes, we generally talk about the generic amount of automation that might now come into play as we move towards our places. And then and as we speak about it a little bit from here as well, that automation will be extremely critical. Sliding doors to our cut-off lobbies or touch-free buttons in elevators. All of these might become important. Sensor-driven doors. All of these might become extremely important in our common areas. When we talk about amenities, as from our common areas to what's there in our communes, we are all looking at our gyms and we are all looking at our multi-purpose halls and the basics that we provide in all properties today, or we look to and aspire to provide in all properties today. Um, we might also want to focus on now, considering we might be spending a lot of time indoors, is the mental aspect, is the mental well-being aspect of things. And we probably want to make more space for meditation. We probably want to make more space for fungible spaces where one can practice art, craft, culture. These within our communes, in some spaces designated for the same within our communes, might be very critical. At the same time, if you look at gardening for stress relief, is also something which is very important. And green spaces will become more important than they ever were before. In talking about green spaces and looking at our resources, urban farming is something which can help us focus on all of these aspects much better if we've got the leverage in our gated community, or we can do this at a neighborhood level, or even do parts of it from homes. Urban farming is something which can help in all those aspects, be it adding resources by ourselves, be it taking social responsibility between the community, be it just stress relief from the state of from gardening, from all of those standpoints. I think urban farming is a great tool to take forward in our designs. And as we spoke about storage facilities previously, and we spoke about how important compact homes are and how they're going to become the norm of the day, maybe storage facilities as a common facility being available or available on lease, uh, be it lockers, garages, might become extremely important and something that can create more value uh, to the end user as we move forward. That takes us to our homes themselves. We drove in from our car, we went into the common areas, we looked at the amenities we had, and now we are walking towards our home. And and our homes today will need to be seen in a slightly different sense. Traditionally, we've always layered our homes. Traditionally, we've always had a veranda, we've had a courtyard, we had a space where we're washing our feet and hands before we get into the public areas of a house. As time has gone by, we've evolved to studios and apartments, which may or may not address all of the layers. But layering our apartments, be it the entrance from a lobby, a segregated entrance for service, a segregated space which can be designated for a study within our home, which is a little more fungible. Some space where, within all of our rooms where we can designate for medical aid. All of these um, will become more important. From that standpoint, if we move forward into our home, we probably first talk about the foyer. As you can see from the images, not every home is going to be able to afford a large foyer. A villa may be able to afford a fair size. But what is important and what is something that as Indians we've been doing traditionally is we're used to removing our footwear as we enter. Um, we're used to seeing that. And while that has also changed, that may make a comeback. And we probably want to see that as a first hygiene checkpost as we enter our homes. That is probably the first place where you disinfect. That's probably the first place where you use the sanitizer. And that's going to make a comeback in my opinion. Be it a smaller home or a larger one, that first layer becomes that much more important in today's scenario. And so does the service entry, so does the idea of utilities and storage. As I harped about storage from a common space and amenity standpoint, if that space is not available, maybe we don't have the space for a full storeroom in some projects, but we definitely want to look at an alcove now or a utility space which is at least better sized than sometimes we do provide. And if we're going to spend more time indoors, I think it's going to be extremely important that we've got enough place to stack up and keep our utilities. And then we're going to talk about flexible spaces. If you've got a large home and you had the luxury of putting in a study and an ante-lobby, and we've got the space, and we've got the space of having a number of different allocations, it's great. If we've got homes where we can't put all of these aspects as segregated rooms, we probably want to look at spaces which are more flexible. We probably want to make our facades more dynamic. We want to make the indoor more outdoor when we want, and the outdoor more indoor when we want. And we probably want to see our walls and partitions moving along. We want to see to it that if we are working from home, we've not given up our personal space. We've been able to layer that space for our children when required. We've been able to create that space for utility when required. And the flexibility and fungibility of spaces will probably be a very important aspect as we move along. Again, do we all have balconies? Can we all get balcony spaces? Can we all get a flower bed? So the flower bed in Mumbai was a place of debate a decade back, and it used to be something which was available to us free of FSI. Maybe we are making another case for it now, because creating your own pocket gardens, your own farms within your homes, in whatever sense, again, well-being standpoint, or just from the little urban farming standpoint, or just to relieve yourself, is an important factor now. Because more amount of time you spend at home, the more amount of time you will need to spend in slightly different spaces and and I think this is a very important aspect of our lives, which needs to be relooked at. And then we just want to look at maybe I'm being a little paranoid here, but we probably want to look at a situation where we've got one room or the only room which we have fitted out or ready to be fitted out for some basic medical equipment or for some medical emergencies. Maybe we look at it as a pod within the amenity spaces, or a medical room within the amenity spaces, or a room within the home which can be fungible for a medical emergency. Or the simplest thing as, seeing to it that for a few number of buildings you've got a small pharmacy. All of these things are probably going to become extremely important as we move forward. If we look at our workspaces, the picture, I believe, says a lot. It shows you that it's a large open space where a lot of people are working, and that means a lot of people are working. And we've been very keen about densities today, depending on the type of business that takes up an office space. But we're very keen on densities: 1 per 60, 1 per 65, 1 per 80, 1 per 75, 1 per 100. We debate these numbers. We try to see to it that we get the best efficiencies. Um, and we talk about open workspaces. Even though the open space has been discussed, debated, and challenged over the last 5 to 8 years, and we've been also moving back and forth between the traditional cubicle and the chambers. But today, um, smaller groups, strategic collaborations, a little more flexibility in our chambers, cubicles, might just help us um, relook at the workspace. The way I see it today and the way I discuss it with all my friends, it seems that as people get used to working from home, um, and may I dare say that if the efficiencies of working from home are similar to what they were as they were when we were working from our office spaces, um, we might uh, just be looking at a fundamental shift in the way in which um, we have been using our co-working spaces or our working space. These virtual collaborations and strategic small groups might just completely change the way in which we plan our businesses, uh, and we look at hiring and employing. It's a debate, and it's too early probably to get any sense of conclusion on it. But it's a very interesting point to mull over. And as we talk about our workspaces, we've got public amenities within our workspaces, be it our washrooms, be it our pantries, be it a small creche or a gym or a sanitization lobby before you enter a certain R&D zone. Um, you will start looking at lesser doorknobs or typologies where you don't want to use your hands. You want to probably reduce the number of surfaces that you touch. You probably want to see to it that sensor-driven fixtures are the only typology of fixtures that are now used within these spaces. Um, you probably want to do away with as many ledge walls as you can, and so as to reduce the number of horizontal surfaces that you need to maintain. Um, and all of these things will start addressing the way in which we design our workspace differently. It'll it'll be a different way in which we want to approach the way in which we design our codes because of a lot of these points. Another interesting idea that the new learnings might throw up is that if your business is large enough and yet still is looking at and requires a lot of physical attendance and is looking at a lot of one-on-one interactions for large groups, we might just want to really push the envelope on the live play formula, and we might just want to say that let's have large or sizable mixed-use developments which are able to address most of these strategically for companies who can come together and say that this is something that I can provide for my employees or put across with my employees simply because being there one on one is that much more important. And this is something as an idea which might be very interesting when we look at master plans and town planning, and especially industrial master plans. Um, this is something which might be an interesting debate as well. interesting but the obvious ones are automation and materials. Automation we spoke about, so did we about materials in a small manner, but automation is probably, and robotics is something which is going to become a norm for us. We are going to be forced to be reliant on these as time comes. We've already become very reliant on these, be it touchless switches, be it your cell phones helping you operate your elevator or your curtains or the lights within your homes or your offices, be it voice control, uh, be it sensor-driven technology, uh, be it about uh, future maneuvering, be it about the way in which we look at materials. We talk about self-cleaning materials, facial recognition. All of these things are going to become extremely important. And when we talk about the materials, some things that have probably not been looked at previously. You want to look at chemical compositions. Maybe there are some certifications that might want to come in, antibacterial, or the kind of resistance that the material is able to provide, and all this information becoming more and more available to us as designers and people from the faculty will become extremely important as we select materials moving forward. On, a, on my last note, I would like to say that I think everything that I've said is something that all of us look at within the faculty. It's just that we probably want to refocus towards all of these things. And while everyone's predictions about what happens post the lockdown, post understanding what's happened from the pandemic, um, is not certain. People are optimistic. Some people will say it'll become the way it used to be. Maybe some people say it'll be a new normal, and some people are much less optimistic about things which are going to happen. But but I think we will come out stronger. I think as an industry, we've always faced these challenges. History is shown in the 1800s in Paris, in the 1950s in the UK, in the early 1900s in New York. It's shown that the construction industry will come up with new ideas, new ways in which we can define our buildings, and I'm we stand up and fight back and become stronger. So thanks a lot, guys. Thank you for giving me this time. Um, it was a pleasure doing this for AIS. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. It was indeed a great session and great learning for all of us. And we have got a lot of questions here. So it will be great if you can take few of that right now. And in case if the time will not permit, the rest question we can take over email. So I'll just take up some very important questions. So yeah. So the first question is, as the company like TCS is moving towards work from home, we all know that they have already announced their intent. Do you see a change in the design for the residential space to accommodate the people working at the house also? And what design feature will get introduced in the residential sector, according to you?
So, as I was talking about layering within the homes and flexible spaces, uh, that is something that I believe is going to be which something which will answer that question that you put up, and it's a very straightforward and important thing that we will need to look at. We've all been reading about the point that you just mentioned, and as working from home does become important, like I said, a space being fungible will be very important, or flexible will be very important, be it a large home or a small home. We will need to create those spaces from a design standpoint, be it through built-in partitions within your house, or be it that we are able to specifically zone a particular corner within the room, or create a room by itself, or do something as radical as convert your balcony into your study when required, or have a sliding wall which converts a bedroom partially into one space and partially into another is very important. So I think design will need to talk about it flexibility. This question also brings in a new dynamic, in my opinion, and as a designer and as an architect, something that I can debate with all my architect friends and you is as I work from home and as I work in from my gated community or neighborhood, and if my home doesn't allow this, are we saying that co-working spaces can be looked at in much smaller groups, and co-working spaces need to go into residential gated communities is a question mark. And can we look at it that way is a question mark. So we're creating spaces within spaces and new spaces within these spaces.
Yeah, this is a very important point brought by you, sir. So yes, this is very important that we are currently looking at the complete paradigm shift in all these spaces. And one very good point what you brought out is the flexibility in the design. Rather than there are people who are writing blogs that we need to create more spaces, but we all should know that creating more space means more money, because every inch will cost, and especially the like Mumbai. So yes, flexibility is the answer uh, for the future, I feel. The second
Yeah.
question is that again from the space point of view, and we are talking about space. So currently we are trying to utilize, especially in the commercial sector. So currently we are trying to utilize as much space as possible. But looking at the importance now of the distancing, which you have also brought out in your presentation, how you feel the commercial space will become commercially viable if the space is not utilized the way it is done now?
So that's a good question. But it's like this. We have to start looking at something as a new normal, if that is what it comes across as. And when I say that, it means that just the way in which we perceive efficiencies and we perceive our need of space, that is exactly what is going to change. So, with social distancing, you might say that I can't afford to have one person per 60 square feet. Maybe I want one person per 150 square feet or one person per 120 square feet. And while this is very easy to say, something like that can change the dynamics of an entire feasibility for a commercial project. And and this, if it becomes the new normal, will really make us dig deep, will make us reassess how we count our densities and populations for a building, and it will have an impact on the space that an organization requires to enter into a certain complex, and the rate that is offered thereof will also equally be impacted, because ability to pay off an X amount of money for an X amount of space previously was assumed to be X, now it is Y, and everything will need to be recalculated according to that. So this is something that is going to have a far-reaching impact, and is not something as simple as just on paper. This will have a far-reaching impact when you talk about social distancing and densities within office spaces.
Very true. Second, one more question on the similar topic is that will these design changes, whatever we are discussing right now, will these design changes persist when the vaccine is out and the pandemic is over? What's your take on this?
So I am not a um, a person who knows how to read too many human minds, or a medical professional, but my belief is that people are always going to want to be careful. Um, and I think the jury is out there on that. I think it's too early to tell us how our entire population takes this as a new normal and says that okay, now there's a vaccine available for it. I've taken it and I'm going to get back to life the way it was. It may very well be that. It may very well be that, and a new normal is created, saying that listen, this is important now, and it's important to keep that little distance. And if that does become the established new normal, then vaccine or no vaccine, these debates will change the way in which we design today. Basically our design programs will change.
Right. One more question, sir, is what segment of the market you feel will be the adversely affected post-COVID, like residential, commercial, or retail or any other. So what's your take on this, that what is that segment of the market which may get adversely affected?
Adversely impacted directly by COVID um, is again a question. Adversely impacted by the impacts of COVID on the economy. I think every segment is impacted by the impact of COVID in terms of economics. But in terms of design, I think transport interchanges will really need to factor in something anew. The way in which retail functions and entertainment functions is going to take a real impact if social distancing and sanitization is becomes a key. I think the retail and entertainment is something which is going to have to be relooked at, in my opinion.
So one last question for the day. Rest question we may take it later. So is it going to impact the overall urban planning? Because see, what is going to happen is that maybe the distance between the urban and rural may get narrowed because of all these changes which we are talking about. So whether we have more spaces in the rural part for the urban development, or urban development will become irrelevant or not so happening in future. So how you see that?
Urban development not being relevant is out of the question. I believe urban development will remain extremely relevant, and I think it will evolve. If this pandemic sets a new normal, I think urban development will just evolve to meet the new requirements. Um, but what will happen though is that if work from home or strategic communes or strategic partnerships from off-site locations become a key driver and become an accepted norm, um, it might just become a sudden boost, not anticipated for rural areas, because then it means that if you are well connected from the rural area wherever your work is, you don't need to be in that particular space, and that means that the rural spaces with good sized homes and a good way in which I can work from home and just travel limitedly when I need to. Um, might just be a completely different impact that we've not anticipated. It will probably bridge the gap between urban and rural in a very different way.
Yeah. Right. So thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for the great insight. It was indeed a great session, and I'm sure every one of us has learned a lot. And this was very relevant topic in current situation. And a lot of questions have got answered. So I would request everyone who were not able to ask some questions now, they can post a question to us at cmore@aisglass.com, and we will take it up this question from Rahul sir, and we'll get you the answer. And the questions which we were not able to take it up today, we will take it up over mail. So thank you so much for joining us for the today's session. So keep tuned for the more such kind of webinars. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Stay safe, guys.